Hello everybody, Demon Red Mist here. Okay, I've come on to try and do a quick guide for the Dynamic GT League drivers in the Toyota SFR around Brands Hatch Grand Prix track. I'm also I might get James Shaw in a little while. Once I've done my initial couple of laps, I'll see if I can get James in. Because something that I thought might interest a few people is because I have helped a few people in the Dynamic GT League, and something that might help them is to know what it is that I'm looking for when I'm watching someone. Now I might be able to do that with James, as he has offered to help. And to be honest, I don't really need help with James. Yeah, I don't really need help doing the initial guide laps, because it's just a lot easier for me to do that bit. But I may be able to like view James going around the track, and then comment on what it is that I look for, and comment on sorry, I'm trying to write messages while I'm talking. Never a good thing to do, two things at the same time. So perhaps be able to show what it is that I look for, and then give my comments to James to see how he could improve. Now I know that Dave the Harp's been having an issue recently, and whatever you think that might be, I'm talking about his tyre wear. And I must admit, I've been racking my brain about the issues that Dave the Harp has had. And to be honest, I'm thinking it could be, I think I'll put them on track, I can't remember. I think it could be a combination of things. It could be setup, could be driving style, could be setup of his wheel, could be a number of factors. But he's definitely got an unusual issue. Running same setup as myself and getting a lot more tyre wear, so I'm not sure exactly why. But anyway, hopefully I'll be able to show here what I try and do around this particular track. Now, Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, it's a track that a lot of people are not going to like, because it's a bit of an odd one, really, in that there is only really one slow corner, and there is only really there's only two big braking points, and so that's turn 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, turn 7, the left hand 90-degree corner. They're the only two heavy braking points. So as I do this video, keep an eye on how much brake I'm actually using around the rest of the track. Now there's two reasons, might be more than two reasons, a few reasons for this. One is the harder and heavier you brake, the more tyre wear you will get, and the slower you will potentially go through a corner. Also means that if you brake a little bit too late, there is nothing you can do to try and slow down more, whereas driving the way that I do, there's always a bit of a margin for error, and around this track you need that, because if you dip a wheel off the track at turn 1, you're deep in the gravel or spinning. If you dip a wheel off at turn 2, you're spinning. Turn 3, you're spinning. Turn 4, so that's the nature of this track. You dip a wheel on the grass and you're spinning. But by giving yourself a little margin for error, it means that you can touch the grass and nearly get away with it. You have an opportunity to save it, or if you make a mistake, you only get close to the grass rather than going on it. But hopefully you'll be able to see that as I'm doing the video. So keep an eye on how much brake I'm actually using. Another reason for not braking too much is, around this track there are a lot of braking zones that are in corners, and the more your wheels are turned when you're on the brakes, the more tyre wear you get, and potentially the less your car will steer. Now, one thing I do know that some people just automatically do when they get understeer, that's turning the wheel and the car's not turning, they turn more. It doesn't help, it hurts. The only way to rectify it is to slow down more, then turn. And I may be able to show that, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to do what I've done on the last couple of videos, which is sort of go around the track corner by corner trying to explain what I do. And I've done a couple of laps here just to sort of refresh my memory in a way. Not necessarily refresh my memory. As I said on my last video, I tend to drive, or I seem like I drive on instinct. I'm not actually... Come on, turn around, you bastard. I think I need a better handbrake. James, I need a better handbrake. Yeah, I tend to drive a lot by instinct around this track. I'm not actually looking, oh, there's my brake marker point. But that's because I've driven around this track thousands of times. So that's just the experience. So I've had to do a couple of laps just to be able to go, right, okay, I'm braking here. What's reference? What's near that I can pick out for you? Okay, quick mention as well, the radar that the DGT League admins or the commentary team go on about for drivers to use is this radar I'm showing on the screen at the moment. If you have this radar on, you can see exactly when a car is right next to you. It's the best one to use. Anyway, okay. Turn 1, it's a corner where a lot of people will go off, and it's a corner that a lot of people hate. The way that I take this corner means that you can pretty much make it every single time, even if you make a mistake. Okay, and that's the key point about this corner. If you make a mistake, you need to be able to stay on the track. Now, the way that I do that at this circuit is I try and work my way over to the left. Now, I'm not all the way over to the left before the first brake marker board because the track curves more left. So I actually position myself a bit further away so that I can have a straighter braking line, really. Now, the way that I approach this corner is as soon as the brake indicator starts flashing on my dashboard, I will then apply the brakes. Braking much later than that simply will not work. You will either go way too slow through the corner or you will go off. So the way that I am attacking this is not braking lots and braking as soon as the brake marker indicator on my dashboard starts flashing. Get my braking done in as straight a line as possible, working my way towards the edge of the track, still slowing down, not full brakes by the way, and trying to get myself to around about this position so that I can then turn in and actually be on the power all the way through this corner. Now, I still need to work on my gears a little bit, but I'm teetering between third and fourth gear through these corners, and braking the way that I have just mentioned means that you can exit the corner around about here and you'll be absolutely fine. But I'll try and show that a bit more. It's a tricky corner to really say brake at this point, blah blah blah, because a lot of it is reference your speed. But if you brake after the indicator starts flashing, you have zero margin for error, and that is one of the ways of making sure you don't go off at this track. It's all about braking at the right point, braking early, not being on the brakes when you're turning in. Okay, approach to turn 2. Now, in many cars you can brake at the bridge for turn 2 here, but in these cars they don't like it. You can brake there and you can brake hard. You're not going to quite make the apex and your minimum speed is going to be very low. So approach the corner on the left hand side of the track, and I am actually braking. When I did my cycle lap a moment ago, I am getting just beyond this AstroTurf on the left, so just beyond it, and then I'm on the brakes, and I'm on the brakes hard because I want to get the car all the way slowed down so that when I'm turning in, I'm not on the brakes. So we brake hard, brake in a straight line. This is where some people are going to try and chuck it up the inside of you. My advice would be, if someone's going to chuck it up there late, let them and repass them on the exit of the corner. Or you can try defending the inside, but you are going to have to slow down a lot to make the apex. So this is a second gear corner for me at the moment. If I'm on the inside of the track, I'm probably going to have to go down to first or be very, very slow in second, but I will try and show that anyway. Again, try and brake in as straight a line as possible, turn in around about the start of the curb. Let the car get turned in. It's very easy to get on the power too soon around this corner, but if you get on the power in the middle of the corner, then you've got to get off the power and get on the power again. A, it's slower, and B, you're initiating a drift, and that is where you then have the difficulty of oversteer, sliding or spinning, or potentially just running wide, getting on the grass and spinning because of that. So let the car get around the corner. There's a few dirty marks on the curbs, not on the edge of the curb, the ones near the outer edge of the curb. On the white bits there's some grey splodges where the paint's been ripped up. As they're kind of appearing is where you should be thinking about just getting on the throttle a little bit until you can see the exit of the corner, and you've got faith in your car that you can power all the way out of the corner. Be very careful on this exit curb. It is very easy to spin if you get too wide. I've got my car set up so that it can just about handle it, but not at 14 mile an hour. I don't like it. Okay, turn 3. This is another interesting or tricky little corner. It's a surprisingly quick corner, but the problem is a lot of people attack it wrong, so they end up going too quick and running wide, and then they don't think it's a quick corner, so then they slow down too much. Now this is a corner that I do drive on instinct, and it's all about how I exit turn 2. Because for me, I approach this corner working my way over to the right hand side of the track, get up to about 4th gear, and shortly after getting into 4th gear, it's a gentle dab of the brakes down to 3rd, turn in and go. Now the basics of this corner is quite simply work your way over to the right hand side of the track, and as you're approaching this first brake marker board is about where you should be getting over to the edge of the track. This is where, now you're in this position, your braking zone is straighter and you don't have to brake a lot as long as you brake around about this point. You don't need to brake a lot, you just need to brake enough to bring your speed down a little bit, so that around about here, I'd say at the end of the grasscrete, you can turn in nice and aggressively to be able to really ride this curb. Now some people will have struggled with this corner a lot, and hopefully the way that I take it you'll be able to see how much speed I can actually carry through this corner by taking quite a bit of the apex curb, letting the car run out wide, and even run it on the exit curb if you need to. That is a bit of a bitch of a corner, and to be fair, there is a few of them around the Brands Hatch circuit. This next turn though, this is my bogey corner. I hate this corner because it's one of those corners that if you get it right, it's brilliant, but it's such a bastard to get it right. And the reason for that is the braking zone is a little bit on a corner, it's very easy to brake too late, and you kind of have to apex this corner very, very late. So what I'm just going to do, I'm going to slowly approach, and then I'm going to come back to the start of this corner just to show something. If you're approaching this corner and you start turning in and you're apexing this corner around about here, you're not making the exit of the corner. You will run wide. So if your left tyres are touching the curb around here, you are not making this corner as quick as you need to be making it, because where you should be apexing the corner is, let's do this nice and slow, is approaching the corner still on the right hand side of the track, turning in later so that you can actually apex the corner here. and get your wheels on the curb here. This is going to allow you to exit this corner so much faster. And the interesting thing about it is you don't have to slow down more to be able to make this corner. You just have to slow down at the right point and position your car in the right place. So by apexing the corner, 20 yards later, you will be able to carry so much more speed through this corner. So you look at where I was apexing and look how much further back it is. It's a long way. So that's why the braking zone here is on a curve, and that is why at this corner you have to be very, very careful about braking hard, because if you are braking hard while you are turning, all you're going to effectively do is be locking your front tyres, and if you're doing that, that's tyre wear and your car's not going to steer. Okay, so as I approach this corner, this is another one where I go on the brake marker indicator on the dashboard. When that starts flashing, that's when I will then start braking, so that I don't have to go full brakes. I'll have to sort of point out exactly when that is when I'm doing a lap. Stay as far right as possible. People are going to be tempted to chuck it up the inside of you here. If they go for it, let them, because they're going to be slow through the corner. That's where you can do a switchback manoeuvre or undercut and repass them up the straight by taking a faster line. Stay as far right as you can without touching the grass, and then around about these two curbs meeting, start your turn in. I'm trying to take this corner in about third gear at the moment, apex it nice and late, and then really get on the power. Okay, so that's the first four corners done. Very tricky, but what I've said will make more sense as I sort of do a full speed lap. Okay, now we are into 4 corners, which are kind of the make and break of the lap, really. A bit like turn 3, these corners are quick corners, but not if you approach them wrong. Okay, as you approach turn 5, it is obviously absolutely flat out, heading up the hill. Now, I am sort of approaching this corner a little bit by instinct, but I'm pretty sure it was around about the second brake marker board I am beginning to apply the brakes. I am not heavy braking. If you heavy brake here, you unsettle the car and you reduce your speed too much. At the moment I'm dropping down to about 4th gear, but I'm probably going to be trying taking this corner in 5th gear once I've finished setting the car up. So not braking a lot, just letting the car slow down on the approach to the corner, get it down to 4th gear, and then before the curb on the left, turn in and then be on the power all the way through this corner. If you are having to apply the brakes through that corner, you're braking way too late. And by way too late, I mean you might as well brake at turn 2, because you're braking way too late. That corner you should be on the power all the way around the corner by braking early and braking not a lot. Okay. These are actually my favourite corners of this track, to be honest. Okay, so this next corner is very similar to the previous one, except for you do have to slow down a little bit more. At the moment I'm taking this one in about 3rd gear just to get the turn in. As for the braking point, I'm going to have to pick one out for you as I'm driving, because I am doing this one fully by instinct, dependent on the speed I am approaching the corner. But I'm going to guess it's going to be somewhere between the 1st and 2nd brake marker board, around about the 2nd brake marker board maybe. I'll pick that out properly. Brake in a straight line on the left hand side of the track, and then around about here. So before the curb on the right hand side is going out the screen, we're turning in, and we're turning in early-ish because we want to be able to again be on the power all the way through the corner, but also get up on this curb. And this is where the tricky part of this circuit comes in. You need a car that can handle the curbs. So we really attack that curb, let the car run out wide, absolutely flat out. Okay, now we're on to probably the 2nd corner, or 3rd corner if you count turn 1, turn 4. This is probably the corner that catches most people out, because people either dip a wheel on the grass on the left, or they run too wide on the exit, or they just brake way too late. It is a horrible corner. Thankfully, you got me to tell you a way to make it very, very nice. It does come with a risk, though, of dipping the left wheels on the grass, and you don't want to do that. Approach this corner absolutely flat out. The braking zone is curved, so what we want to try and do is try and straighten the braking zone up as much as possible. So I'm not approaching the track all the way over on the left hand side of the circuit. I'm going to approach more centrally so that I can get my car into about this position and aim it. You see the advertising boards in the distance? You got blue on the left, then white, then blue, then white, then blue. I'm kind of aiming straight at the middle blue one. Now I've got a straight braking zone, so I'm not moving all over the place and trying to brake in a straight line. And you'll see on the wall on the left where there's the green bit on the end of the wall, the first green bit. I'm pointing at the screen, you can't see my hand, but anyway, you'll notice that the track goes from curving left to actually it does start to straighten up a little bit. Now the trick here is to brake in a straight line, and again it's not a heavy braking zone, but I am braking around about here where the track begins to straighten up a little bit, and I'm going to brake in a straight line towards the edge of the track. Okay, and then as I get to the edge of the track, around about this change of tarmac, just point that out, just in front of me there's a change of tarmac. Around about here, I'm going to really attack this corner. Now, I'm taking it a third gear, trying fourth, but by braking early, as I've mentioned at the point I've mentioned, and braking lightly, not heavy, light braking allows you to get your car slowed down to a decent speed, and then you're off the brakes, turning in and absolutely flat out through this corner, pushing as hard as you can. It's the quickest way. Now if you brake at the right point, you can make this, and if you brake at the right point and you make a mistake, you can save this. Okay, if you brake at the wrong point, trouble. So we're going to turn in around about the change of tarmac and really attack this curb, because we want to be positioning the car around about here, maybe even taking a bit more curb, to be honest, but we want to be really aggressive on the throttle so that we can let the car run out wide, but obviously don't touch the grass on the left. If you do, chances are you're going to be spinning. Once you've got over to the left hand side of the track, we should be absolutely flat out now, and as soon as you're over to the left, we start moving over to the right as quick as we can to straighten up this braking zone. This braking zone is the second heaviest braking point of this track. If you don't brake enough, you're going off. You're going to run wide. So brake in a straight line, brake hard enough to get the car down to either second or third gear, and that will allow you to then carry the speed. But again, be off the brakes if you can before you turn in for this corner. Turns 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, if you need to keep the brakes on a little bit as you are approaching the apex, you can, as long as you have not you're not full brakes. So you can do trail braking into those, around those corners if you need to. This corner, it's not worth the risk. The later you are on the brakes towards the apex of the corner, the trickier this corner becomes. Now the braking point, I can't say I've actually managed to spot one. A lot of it depends on the exit of the prior corner, and that's what I mentioned about this track, driving it by instinct. It's not easy to go, yeah, brake at that point on some of the corners. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on where I do brake when I do the flying lap around here. But as I mentioned, brake in a straight line, get the car slowed down, third gear if possible. If you've got the car slowed down enough, third gear is possible. Don't turn in too soon. If you can, turn in around about just before the start of this curb on the right, so that you can really attack the apex of the corner, which opens up the exit and makes it nice and easy, and you can again be on the throttle through and out of the corner. Now we're into the last corner on the track, and don't brake too hard for this corner. brake around about, what, 150 meters, so before the green block on the wall on the left goes out of the screen. Brake in a straight line on the left hand side of the track. You don't have to go full brakes for this corner. If you are full brakes in this corner, you're going to be going too slow, or you are braking way too late. So brake early, brake light, carry either third or fourth gear through this corner, and again, once you've turned in, sort of just at the start of this gravel on the left, don't turn in too soon, but yeah, around about the gravel on the left, turn in, and again, once you've turned in, you should be on the power, really being able to push through this corner. Okay, watch out for the pit entry as well, because it's a tricky little bitch. Okay, I'm just going to jump back to the track because the tyres are freezing cold, and then I'm going to go and do a couple of laps. Now, I know I've kind of rattled through that a bit, and a lot of it might not make sense, but it is a very tricky racetrack, this. But the things I've mentioned do help make it an enjoyable racetrack, because one of the biggest frustrations of this racetrack is ending up on the grass or in the gravel at turn 1. So hopefully what I'm going to be able to show you as I'm flying around now is how to be able to not end up on the grass or in the gravel. So obviously I'm just going to take it a little easy on my out lap. I've just noticed, well, I'm on the medium tyres. I'm going to get rid of those. I do not want to be on the medium tyres. I tested them in a race the other day. They were alright, but they were not great. Okay, so let's try that again. Now, I know there was 2 corners that I couldn't give a specific braking point. As I am going round at full speed, I will try and sort of highlight where I am braking, but as I mentioned at the start, keep an eye on how much brake I am using through a lot of the corners. It is a feature of this car that braking late and heavy don't work. The nature of this track, some corners you may need to do some trail braking, but for those of you that are struggling around this track, braking at the points that I've mentioned and getting off the brakes when you're turning will benefit you initially so much more, so that you are then making the corners that you can then brake less and keep the brakes on a bit more towards the apex of the corner. Okay, second brake marker board there for that corner, braking point by the looks of it. Now, I mentioned about the risk of dipping the wheel, left wheel on the grass there, but driving it the way I do means if I do dip the wheel, I've got a chance of saving it. Okay, last corner. Okay, just after the second brake marker board for a braking point. Right, let's see if we can get on here. So first braking point for turn 1 is literally as the red indicator flashes. Now I'm on the brakes, bit hard on the brakes there, but easily to the apex, power all the way out using all of the curb brake just at the end of the AstroTurf. Didn't mean to go down to second. Get the car slowed down, be patient, and then you want to be trying to go full power. Work over to the right hand side of the track, easily through that corner. Be careful at this one. I'm up to 5th. Brake indicator on the brakes. Wait. Turn in, apex late, and then you can get on the power. Got to be careful of running wide though. Okay, now the brilliant corners, which means I'm now going to fuck them up. So, not braking too hard here. Braking second marker board. Let the car get in and power all the way through. Now into the second corner. It's going to be the second marker board. Not a lot of brakes. Get on the curb if we can, but we can still power around the corner. Now the trickiest of them all. Straighter line, straighter braking zone. Took it easier than normal, but easily on the apex. Get over to the right hand side, hard on the brakes. Get it on the apex curb. easily on the power. Okay, just after the second brake marker board. Braking a bit too much there, Dave. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, I'm not approaching this corner all the way to the edge of the track because the track curves easily to the apex. Holding fourth gear all the way through the corner, just at the end of the Astros. Hard on the brakes. Let the car get turned in. Don't be on the power too soon there. I was on the power quite late and still all the way to the edge. Light on the brakes, get it turned into the apex. Don't turn in too soon, and even if you do miss the apex a bit, you can still save it by braking earlier, as I mentioned. Right. I do love this corner up here. Such a quick corner. Light on the brake, second brake marker point, get it turned in on the power early, all the way through. Just after the second brake marker point, down to third gear, get on that curb, power, all the way through, easy. Let the car run wide. On the curb, power, could probably do that in fourth gear, hard on the brakes. Get on the apex curb, easy, third gear. So I'm not going quick by braking late and by braking hard. Probably do this corner in fourth gear, but I've still got a bit of setup work to do. Missed the braking point. Oh, should have been able to save it. Should have been able to save it. Braked a little bit too late, but should have been able to save that. Right, what I'm going to try and do now is show what happens if you do some of the things that I have seen people doing. So, braking too late, braking too hard, things like that. Now, this corner is one of those corners, if you do brake too hard here, when you want to turn, the car's not going to want to do it. Well, your car is just going to be going so slow at the apex of the corner, people that take it like I do are going to be 20 mile an hour faster than you, and then you're going to be wondering why you've been rammed off into the gravel. Right. I'm just trying to work my way back to the start finish, so don't worry about this driving at the moment. I was contemplating. Now, this corner I mentioned, if you do dip a wheel on the grass there, the car's going to slide. If you've got the ability, you can catch the slide and drift around the corner, driving it the way that I do. Okay. So we're going to go with braking way too, well, not way too late, but a bit too late for this next lap. I mean, again, like I say, when you've look back at the laps that I've just done, the amount of brake I use is very minimal. But okay, let's attack turn one. So we're going to ignore the brake indicator. It's going now. Now we're going to brake. Even hard braking. Only just made the corner, but I'm so much slower. Going to brake at the bridge. I'm not quite making the apex, and I've had to brake a lot slower, and I'm unstable all the way through the corner. Okay, I'm going to go beyond a little bit, brake at the curb, not making the corner, had to go down to second gear. Braking too late, now I'm running wide, now I'm slower. So by braking late, it just creates so many problems. Massive understeer because I was heavy on the brakes. Now I've still managed to make that corner, but slower. I've still managed to make that corner, braking late and braking heavy, but so much slower. And that's one of the key things to it. Yes, you can get around some of the corners braking late and braking heavy, but slow. Right, okay, my tyres are worn now, so let's see if we can still get around the track decently braking the right way. No dramas. Dip to wheel and you can save it. Margin for error. Now, to be fair, these haven't been my quickest of laps, but I'm just doing this as a show anyway. But this track can be such a great fun track to drive, but if you attack it wrong, it'll be a track you'll hate. And I do hear a lot of people saying how much they hate this track, and quite often I think, well, do you really know it? Because I used to hate this track until I learned how to drive it. Now, hopefully I've been able to show a few things there that will be able to help people. And while I remember, actually, I just want to show one more thing, and that is about people's aggressiveness around this track. Right. This is a track where if you are off the racing line, making the corners is not easy, right? So I'm just going to quickly mention about, if I can get the car spun round. Right, so I'm just going to mention about defensive driving and aggressive driving. Right, around this track, be sensible. Right, if you're going to chuck it up the inside of turn one, you better get it slowed down, because if you don't, you're wiping out anybody that's next to you. If you're thinking of defending turn one, are you sure you want to do that? Because you're going to lose a hell of a lot of time if you do. Would you not be better not defending turn one if someone's going to chuck it up the inside, letting them have to slow down lots while you stick to the racing line? And if they do get past you, you have a much better run towards turn one, towards turn two, and you can repass them. So be very thoughtful of where you choose to defend around this track. Sometimes the best form of defence is attack, and by attacking I mean taking the faster line. If you're defending, you're going slower. If you're on the racing line, you're going faster. So think about it. If someone's going to go for that move up the inside of turn one, let them go for it. You might get to laugh at them as they go into the gravel. Same at turn two. Okay, defend turn two, you can. But don't be afraid of not defending turn two, because if somebody is going to make that move, they've got to make it without punting you off the road. So think about it. Now, I don't want to give too many secrets away, but the reason I've mentioned that is around this track, if you are off the racing line, your minimum speed through corners is massively reduced. So I'm just going to quickly do one lap showing that. So taking the corners off the racing line. So if you do attack or defend into turn one, you're probably gonna, well, you're not probably, you will have to slow down a hell of a lot more. Same with turn two. If you're on this line, the corner is now much, much tighter. Turn three, again, we're approaching it at such an awful angle that we've got to slow down a lot. It's definitely a second gear corner to make sure that A, you don't punch somebody off, and B, you can stay on the track. Now, this is an interesting corner to go side by side. You can do it, but if you're on the inside, you've got to make sure you hug this inside and you leave space on the exit of the corner. Same for this one. You're going to have to slow it down a bit more to be able to make the corner. This one is not a corner I would recommend going side by side in, because if you're on this line, again, you tighten up the corner, you have to go slower. This becomes a really horrible corner and much slower being off the racing line. The final corner is another one you can go side by side on. If you're on the inside, you've got to make sure you don't run wide and stick somebody in the gravel. But turn one is the place where a lot of people may think about having a go. Trust me, it ain't that wise. But if you are going to go up the inside, you better make sure you get it slowed down, because I braked at the same point as I would on the racing line. I braked a bit more and I didn't make the corner. So if I had a car next to me, bosh, we're both off. So if you're going to go for that move up the inside, you better make sure you can make it. Okay, let me just check my messages to see if James has responded to me. Okay, he has. Wayne says, it's a setup guide I need. I struggle using the petrol pump in real life. Well, maybe it's because you drive a diesel that you struggle. Haha. Right, I'm going to see if I can get James into this chat party. I'll see if he's online. Just have to bear with me a second, folks. I don't know, he's not online. James, where the F are you? He's probably watching this. I'm going, oh shit, I need to get set up. Right. I've sent you a chat invite, James, so if you are watching this, you know what to do. But yeah, I mean, this is a tricky little track, but it is also a brilliant track. Just if you attack it wrong, it is an awful track. Right, I'm going to take a breather for a moment while I wait and see if James shall appear. Interestingly, I mean, Wayne mentions about a setup guide. I mean, one of the things that I mentioned when I started doing a few of these videos was that I don't spend anywhere near as much time on this game as I would have done previous games. Simply because I race in the Dynamic GT League for fun. And I don't want to be spending hours and hours and hours and hours testing, practicing. And okay, yeah, you can benefit a lot with the setups, but I've been down that route to the extreme, and it wasn't a good time of life for me. With that added on, the enjoyment of racing disappeared. So I've not spent too much time on the setups. What I have noticed with this track is the setup that I had been using at the last few races, like tweaking it a little bit from one race to the next, didn't like this track. And that's because this track is bumpy, it is tricky braking zones, there's a lot of curb usage, and the car seemed to want to bounce. It was very bouncy around the track, so I have had to look a little bit into the setup, and I still could do with looking at it a bit more, to be honest. Now, what I would say is, if you are very much a beginner with setups, so I'll just create a new sheet here. Right, if you are a beginner with setups, what I would say is, I mean, I did do a practice guide video some time ago, but if you're a beginner with setups, what I would say is there's going to be a lot of the setup stuff that you're not going to fully understand. Things like the natural frequency, the anti-roll bar, the dampers, the cambers, the toes, the differentials, and stuff like that. As I mentioned on the video I did some time ago, was the number one thing to do is get your gear ratio as right as you possibly can without going into too much detail. Find out what your maximum top speed is around the track, and then reduce your gears, reduce this or increase this to work with your gear, work with your maximum speed. Once you've done that, you know that the car's around about the right, capable of the right sort of speed, so you know that you may have to tweak a gear here and there for different corners, but that's not a problem. You know that your overall speed's fine. If you've got it set at 200 mile an hour and the car can only do 100, you've got problems. So get the gear done first. Then I would say, obviously, put some decent tyres on the bloody thing. Traction control, that's up to personal preference. But then what I would say is, just have a look at whether, or see if you feel that you're getting understeer or oversteer. A quick way, for a car that doesn't have aerodynamics, a quick way to try and solve that is, if your car is understeering, you can reduce the toe angle. This will allow the car to steer better. Reduce it too much and it won't work. But that is a very quick way of making a car that is very understeery become more manageable. After that, I would potentially look at reducing ride height. Ride height is very dependent to car, circuit, curbage, all that kind of thing. If you are a rookie to the setup guides, I would honestly recommend not really touching any of these. However, there is a lot of time to be found by learning what they do. The camber angles is probably one of the first things I would look at changing. After the ride height, you can affect how much the car understeers or oversteers by adjusting the camber angles. And the anti-roll bars, again, you can adjust the anti-roll bars to massively affect understeer or oversteer. So as a quick guide, that's how I would do it. Start off with gears, and then ride height, and then toe angle, and see how you get on with that. Anyway, right, I've sent James an invite, so I'm guessing he's either having a dump or is not ready. He's not available yet. I will give it another moment. So I might as well go for another lap, hadn't I? Oh, I've default setted my car, haven't I? Bear with me a second, folks. Actually, right, okay. This is something I know I've mentioned to a couple of drivers, and they didn't know anything about these the sheets, and to be honest, I didn't until SGP mentioned these to me. Right, let me just delete that. Right, okay. Let's say, for example, you have been driving around Brands Hatch and you've got the car set up really nice, and your next race is Barcelona, and you drive there and the car feels alright, but you want to make setup changes, right? But you don't really want to lose the setup you've already got. All you need to do is click on switch / add sheet, and then add a new sheet, and then we have an unnamed sheet now where everything is reset to default on the car. Click on the setup that you have currently got by pressing X. Tell it to copy. Click on the unnamed sheet. Tell it to paste. Now we have a direct replica. Click on it again and tell it to select. Now we can rename it. And now we can do setup changes on this setup, knowing that we've still got the other one there to go back to if we want to. These sheets are also very handy if you've got a car set up quite nicely for one track, but it doesn't work at another track. You can have a new sheet just for that other track. I've not been doing that personally, but that's a very handy tool to have. Okay, let me make sure I've picked the right setup sheet now. Okay, let's go and do a couple more laps. Give James a few more minutes to see if he's going to join me or not. Those corners are doable in 5th and 4th gear, but not sure I'm keen on that. Ooh. I know I said on the other laps that that corner could possibly be done in 4th gear. Now I remember why I was doing it in 3rd, because in 4th gear there is a much bigger risk of running wide, and it only needs a tiny touch of the grass. Clip the grass, but margin for error allows me to save it. Oh, that was bad driving, that was. Changed the gear at the wrong point. Led me to running wide. Now you can use quite a bit of the grass on the inside of that corner, as long as you don't turn in too soon. Oh, that's why it's handy having a car that can cope with the curbs. Oh, okay, tyre wear's kicking in a bit now. Hopefully you'll be able to see, I mean, the tyre wear is quite bad at the moment for me, to be honest, but hopefully with quite a bit of wear on, you'll be able to see that it can still make the corners. Don't have to make minor adjustments, slow down a little bit more maybe, wait a little bit more before getting on the power. Yeah, struggling a bit to turn in for one now. Right on the limit. But again, that's that margin for error. Just having that little margin, such a benefit. Okay, I'm going to do one more lap. Car's not liking that corner anymore, but quite a bit of wear on those, so it's to be expected. Had to wait a little bit longer before getting on the power then, because I couldn't get it into the apex. Boy, interestingly, I took a slightly tighter approach to that corner, and that's what led to me running out wide with the addition of a bit of tyre wear. Right, let's see what this pit entry is like. Yeah, shit a bitch. So be careful on the way to the pits. Right. James hasn't appeared, so I am going to bring this video to an end because I do need to get myself some lunch. I didn't eat yesterday until gone midnight, so it was technically I didn't eat at all yesterday. I ate today, so I need to go and do myself some lunch because that was not very clever. So yeah, I can't remember where the next track is, but I will try and do a video for the next track a little bit sooner. And make sure you come and check out the Dynamic GT League's YouTube channel if you want to get involved in GT Sport Racing in a not too serious league. Then have a look at Dynamic GT League on Facebook. Okay, that's me done for now, folks. Have a good one, and I shall catch you later.